Uh, we're going to have a great presentation by Lance. Lance, you still with us?
I'm still with you.
Great. So just before we go with you, just going to review who's coming next week. We have Terry Vaughn coming in next week, and he's going to speak to us about his career and about Huntington disease, since it's May and happened to be Huntington disease awareness month. So we're going to be giving away some stuff related to that, some T-shirts and some other stuff. We also have Ryan Sijic coming back, NCAA National Coordinator of Referees. He's going to do a presentation on um, violent behavior 1 and 2 versus fighting, and we're going to have our president Gary Hoover coming in to talk about the future of NYSOA and the direction that NYSOA is heading to. Some great stuff there. And we're going to have our friend Corey Rockwell doing a great live presentation on Upside. And it's going to be a live presentation. So just before you log in, we're going to send you a link so you can download a little app and you'll be able to interact with him. And it's going to be great. So, but today we have a great one, and that is Lance with focus and concentration. Lance, you want to take over?
Thank you, Richard. Thank you for everybody for staying on after Caroline's presentation. They always say it's hard. You never want to follow a legend. And here I am attempting to follow a legend. So Richard asked me to take focus and concentration. And there's a lot that we can go into with focus and concentration.
You have the power now.
Awesome. There's a lot we can go into with focus and concentration. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to touch on some stuff with it before the match, during the match, and after the match. And a lot of this will coincide a little bit with what Don Wilbur, when he talks about mental preparation, later on in another webinar series. So Richard and RWISOA, thank you for having me. I feel like I'm one of your chapter members because of as much as we talk, as many times as I've been up to New York to provide assistance with your chapter for training. And also the fact that my wife is from the New York area. So, I feel like I'm a native New Yorker at times. So let's get started. So we're looking at right now, focus and concentration. So what is focus and concentration? Okay, and I found this quote, even though it talks about effort, but I found this quote on LinkedIn the other day, and I really wanted to save it. Now everybody knows who Dwayne Johnson is, The Rock, and he's big into motivation. And he talks about success at anything comes down to this, focus and effort, and we control both. And that's the same thing with focus and concentration. We control both of those. So it's within our ability to be successful based on them. Now, I also have a link here, but I don't think the link is going to play because it goes to YouTube and it might be a little choppy. So what we can do for time purposes, we will skip that, but I'll make sure to share this presentation where it can be seen at a later time. So what is focus and concentration? Well, focus, pay particular attention to. And concentration, the action or power of focusing one's attention or mental effort. Now, with focus and concentration, this is extremely important as referees. Before the match, during the match, and after the match. It's your ability
I'm going to interrupt your focus if you don't mind and your concentration. Can you maximize the screen? It just became too tiny now, and some people may not be able to see it. There you go. Sorry to interrupt your concentration.
No worries. So focus and concentration. So like, for example, Richard interrupting me. Now, how do I gain back my focus and concentration to get back to the presentation? It's the same in a soccer match. What do you do when something goes wrong in the match? How do you get back your focus and concentration? So we're going to discuss things about that. The more focused and concentrated you can be in a match, the more successful you're going to be. So my hope is to give you some best practices, some advice, and some other stuff that Carol Ann had mentioned too about focus and concentration. So when does it begin, Richard? When does focus and concentration begin? That's a question. Okay, not for Richard, for Victoria. Victoria, when does focus and concentration begin for you in terms of soccer, in terms of your assignments, your matches?
I mean, the second the assignment comes in, you're focusing on the game. For me, it's in training. You have to think about where you want to be and how you're going to get there.
Absolutely. You know, it begins now, right? So it begins now. It's preparing you for success, for your big appointment or your next appointment. And you kind of you talked about this in a roundabout way, but it starts with setting goals. And those that know me, I am a huge proponent of setting goals. Back when I was a grade 6 referee, now I'm retired referee, but back when I was a grade 6 referee, it would have been like 2010, back when the U.S. Soccer had the grading system. One of our state research clinics, an exercise that we had was we had a sheet of paper that was a timeline, and we had to fill in our age and our current grade, and then where we wanted to be. Now, back then, you had to retire as a FIFA referee at age 45. So that was the end, was 45. And it kind of really put things in perspective of where you wanted to be at certain points in your life, and how are you going to get there. So my goals, like many up and coming referees, was I wanted to be a national referee. Well, how do I want to be that? What age do I want to be that? And then I wanted to be a professional referee, work in the MLS. What age for that? And then I wanted to be a FIFA referee. And then I wanted to be an Olympic referee. I wanted to be a World Cup referee. So those were my aspirations. Now, putting it down on paper helps connect the dots, because you have to be working in your professional game for 3 years at the highest level in order to become to be nominated for a FIFA referee. So those are things that will help structure. For me, it helps structure my timeline. And then inside of that, you also have to, figure out what's your plan. What are your weaknesses? How can you take your weaknesses and make them your strengths? So it's all about setting goals. And I talk about setting goals as a referee. I still have that paper, which is ironic. And it either tells me that I'm a hoarder because I keep all my stuff like that, or it's just something that really stuck with me throughout the years, that I can look back at that piece of paper and say, I was really glad I wrote that down, because even though I never became a FIFA outdoor referee, I still was able to become a FIFA futsal referee. I still was able to go to the World Cup, and I still was able to go to the Olympics in futsal and accomplish all of that within this time frame. So it's pretty amazing to me that when you start setting goals and you start figuring out your plan for achieving these goals, the mind is a very powerful thing. And every time that I've sat down and been realistic about goals, I've always been able to achieve them. And I'm not a special person that has all these opportunities and whatnot based on luck. It's really because you make a plan, and then you put in the work. So we talk about setting goals here too. So, like, for example, everybody wants to set a goal around New Year's Day. Everybody wants to set a goal for the new year. So here's a statistic for you I found. 92% of New Year's goals end in failure. 92%. Out of those 92%, 25 give up in the first week. Now, I can tell you personally, when I've tried to make New Year's goals, it hasn't gone very well because typically it's not very thought out. It's not something that's measurable nor sustainable. So just some tips on how to set goals. I have 10 tips here that I'd like to share, and it's always helped me. The first step is choose goals that are worthwhile. So if your goal is to get out of bed every day in the morning and make a pot of coffee, that goal really isn't worthwhile. It has to be something that's really meaningful to you. Second step, choose goals that are achievable in stretches. Now, when I talked about my path to age 45, which, I'm not there yet, but my path to becoming a FIFA referee and a World Cup referee and working the college cups and all my accomplishments, I didn't set that as the only goal, but I set that as the end goal. And then in between there, I had all these little benchmarks that I wanted to meet, like being a national referee, going to youth nationals as a returner, going to amateur nationals, working Division I soccer, working a Division I final in soccer, a conference final. Those were all measurables and achievable stretches I was able to check off as I progressed through my referee career. Making your goals specific, being committed to your goals. And this is something that I really truly feel too, is when you make your goals public. A lot of us have mentors, our spouses, our family members. I'm very fortunate that my brother is also a referee, specifically an assistant referee at the national level. And so as we were coming up together, we were always talking about our goals. Having a close group of friends, some of my friends who I'm very fortunate to have that work in the MLS, being able to talk to them about our goals as we were climbing the ladder, as we were progressing through our referee careers. In being able to support one another. Prioritizing your goals. What's important to you? Make your goals real to you. So it has to be something that's achievable. For example, if you're 18 years old and you want to be a FIFA referee by age 21, that's not achievable and not realistic because of the minimum age requirements FIFA has to become a FIFA referee. So make sure your goals are real to you. Also, setting deadlines to accomplish them. A lot of us have these grand goals in life, but if there's no deadlines, there's no focus and push to really to achieve them. And then lastly, number 9 and number 10 is you reevaluate your goals. A lot of our goals for officiating can change based on our life events, graduating college, getting married, having a family, things like that can really truly alter your timeline and makes you reflect and figure out what's now important to you and what's now important to your family. And then finally, reward yourself for accomplishments. By having some sort of reward for accomplishing your goals really motivates you to stay on task and accomplish more goals. So, those are just 10 tips. And if you're viewing this presentation, you can take a look at it and think about how this applies to you. Everybody's goals are going to be different. My goals were much different than my brother's, than some of my best friends that are officials. And, and you have to dream big, but at the same time, you have to be realistic when you dream. So, these are really good. And I'm a strong believer of writing your goals down and putting them somewhere where you can visualize them and see them. So what I used to do is I would write my goals down and then I would put them up in my bathroom, right by my mirror. I tape them on my mirror. So every time I got up, every time I went to wash my hands, to brush my teeth, the first thing I did was I saw my goals. And that helped motivate me to stay on track. And then before I went to bed, when I brushed my teeth, washed my hands, I was looking at my goals before I went to bed. And I truly feel that by doing this really helped keep focus, because there are times where you're going to lose focus. You're going to lose concentration. And it happens to everybody. But how do you get back on track is what really sets you apart and what keeps you motivated to accomplish your goals. Richard, you still with me? I'll take that as a yes. So, off season.
Yes. Okay,
yes. Just making sure.
I was talking to myself. I muted myself because I didn't want to bother you, because I like to talk too much, and I forgot that I was muted. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I was just making sure everybody's still with me.
You have a lot of people with you. We have a lot of questions coming up, so be ready.
That's good. How many people do we have tonight right now?
Right now we have going up and down. We are 176 right now, and we have a max of 503.
That's incredible.
So we're doing good. We're
doing great. We're doing, as we say in CONCACAF, we're doing excellent. So now we're going to talk about off season. So Victoria was touching this, where focus and concentration starts now. It starts in the off season. So when you look at your collegiate schedules, everybody gets excited when assigners start releasing games in that February through April timeframe. Everybody gets excited when they see that email that comes through Arbiter or Zebra, or Zebra Web, things like that. Spot Foul.
Especially Zebra Web. They get very excited with Zebra Web.
Everybody gets excited when they see that, right? So that itself should drive you to be focused for the season, for the upcoming season, because before you know it, it hits. We're in July, the beginning of August, and the season's right around the corner. So what are some things we can do to focus and concentrate to help us be successful during the season? And part of that is studying the rule book and the changes. Now, I can tell you that, the rule book is much smaller for the NCAA than it is for IFAB. It's more condensed. And what the rule book has, which is extremely beneficial, are these additional rulings, the ARs that are in the rule book. And those provide you examples or scenarios that pertain to the rule. So those are extremely helpful. Highlighting those, going through the rule book and highlighting those, extremely helpful and help you prepare. Something we did this year with NYSOA, which many of you on this webinar are familiar with, and I hope you're not tired of the emails that I send to everybody, multiple each week. But it's to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to participate in the stimulus quiz. And one thing that we want people to do with the stimulus quiz is to dust off their rule books, open them up, and look through them as they're doing the quizzes. I know for a fact, for me, when I help write up the analysis of each clip, I go in and I look at where in the rule book is this found, because I want to make sure that I include that, so that way everybody that's able to either partake in the stimulus quiz or partake in the analysis, which to me is the most important part of each video clip that you can find on NYSOA.com in a PowerPoint presentation, is that it'll note to you for each clip and each decision where in the rule book you can find that justification. Because we really have to know the rules in college, because coaches love to test us on them, because many of the coaches know the rules just as well as we do. And it's about how we can communicate with the coaches about the rules and justify our decisions, and it will help us become better referees. The rule changes are coming out this year. Many of you have already seen them. They're on NYSOA.com. They're on our social media pages. They're on the NCAA hub. But a lot of the changes this year for the NCAA are in line with IFAB. So it's great that the rules are starting to merge together, so we don't have to try to remember, okay, this is a college game today. I have to referee the college game with the college rules. Well, a lot of that is starting to come together now, which is fantastic. But many of us in this country don't have a lot of experience with the IFAB changes. For example, the handling, not allowing an attacking player to handle the ball that leads to a goal, even if it's incidental. The drop ball situation where, with the drop ball to the team in possession or the team that last touched the ball, managing the wall when you have 3 or more players in the wall, defensive players, and you have an attacker, how far away they have to be from the wall. These are all new to us in U.S. soccer because they were adopted in IFAB in March of 2019, and by that time, all of our competitions were already going on. So many of us, this is new to us for 2020. So it's very important that we're able to stay sharp, focused, and concentrate on the rules. Off-season fitness training, obviously it's a little difficult now with COVID-19, but it's a challenge. How are people staying fit? How is everybody staying fit? There's a lot of different opportunities out there. Everybody wants to buy a Peloton now that can afford one. So it's a way to stay fit. There's a lot of workouts that are online that you can subscribe to. I'll give a plug right now for my good friend Jonathan Weiner in his Empire Fitness Gym down in Homestead, Florida, down near the Keys. He runs off his Instagram page. He runs home workouts for free that they do live every morning. So that's a way to check out, and they use items around the house for resistance. So there's always ways that you can stay fit and stay sharp, and you can never be too fit. Because remember, you don't want a referee to get fit. You want to get fit to referee. And that's something that I know RWISOA really preaches because of your fitness program that you have and the manager you have running your fitness program, right, Victoria?
Yeah, that's Felipe Rusi.
Felipe Rusi.
That's right, former FIFA referee.
He's great. He's the best.
He's a wealth of knowledge when it comes to that, so it's fantastic. And there's a lot of resources out there too where you can stay fit in off-season training. Another one of my friends, Christina Uncle, many of you know on this call, she runs her the deadlift effect, where it helps with not only with fitness but also the mental strength. And that's a real strength and a challenge for many of us officials is we get fit, but it's not just getting fit, but it's also being mentally fit. So I highly recommend you check out Christina Uncle's the deadlift effect as well. And lastly, for off-season focus and concentration is attending and participating in educational initiatives. Being on the call tonight. Many of you are, I'm sure, because I've been on, were repeat listeners for this. Even when I'm not presenting, I'm usually logging in to listen to see all the great information that's being provided, the education, participating in the stimulus quizzes, participating in, going to clinics when we used to have in-person clinics last year, whether it be the joint NYSOA ECSR joint clinic that we had up there at Fordham University with RWISOA as well as New York Metro. We had, I believe it was 130 referees roughly we had in attendance for that, which is incredible. Everybody's giving up their Saturdays and right now giving up your Friday night to become better because you're focused on being better. And this is what it takes to get to that next level for those of you that are either get to the next level or stay at the level you're at. So now we're going to talk about some things like during the season when August rolls around. So you got before game, during game, and after the game. So we're going to talk about focus and concentration before the game, during the game, and after the game. So before the game, doing your homework. How do you prepare for the game? So, Victoria, when you see assignment come in that says you are going to be refereeing St. John's University men's match, what are you doing to prepare for that match?
I mean, outside of all the statistical research and everything that's available offline, you can look at game tapes. I'm usually talking to whoever has had either this team this season or the season prior, just seeing what they can offer from a referee perspective, things that you can't get offline.
Absolutely. And how do you find out who's had their, like, who's refereed St. John's prior?
So usually I can look at game tape and figure it out. Also, I mean, we're just a huge community, so usually you can shoot a couple of texts and figure it out, especially some of the local games.
Absolutely. And, looking at film, usually you can see who's working games, looking at box scores. I get a lot of text messages throughout the season from, referees, whether I know them, they're my friends, or just part of the RWISOA family. If I have a team that's coming from Florida to go up to the Northeast, I have referees that will contact me, shoot me an email. Hey, Lance, do you know anything about this team? And usually I can give some quick tidbits because, as we know, different referee styles, different referees, get along. I should say the teams act differently with those referees. So it's not necessarily a blanket statement, but you're able to provide them information on who the star players are. How is the technical areas? How are the captains? What's the style of play? Those kind of things that can really prepare you going into the match. This is probably, if we had one takeaway for tonight, like, I really want people to take this away, and that's mental preparation. All too many times we're rushing in life. We're leaving from work to go to a game, or maybe we're leaving home. A lot of the times, especially in the New York area, because I've been part of it, where you get stuck in traffic, and hopefully you accounted for it, but there are times where you left work late, or you had family commitments that didn't get you out of the house in time, and now you get in there at rush hour, and now you're rushed and you're stressed. That's a great time in the car to start mentally preparing for your match. Now, what do I mean by mental preparing? Is visualizing scenarios. And Carol Ann started to talk about it a little bit, where she said, like, there's a hard challenge in the match in front of the bench early. What am I going to do? And she's running these scenarios through her head prior to the match because she's preparing herself. So that way she's being proactive and she's not being reactive to the situation. She already knows what she's going to do prior to it even occurring. And that's something that I've always taken away from my games, is no matter what level official you are, no matter what level the game you're on, is you're always visualizing the scenarios that happen. That first hard challenge in the match, 5 minutes in the midfield, how are you going to deal with it? Something to think about. Maybe you take clues. Maybe there are clues from the players and the teams and things like that. But, you visualize how you're going to handle situations, and when they occur and you're not surprised by them, you're going to visualize yourself for success. And I've always felt that when you visualize for success, chances are those things never happen in the match. But when they do, you're prepared, and then you end up on those video clips for RWISOA doing best practices. So I truly feel that's extremely important. That's an extremely important part there. And it doesn't take very long. It can be 5 to 10 minutes as you're driving to the game, as you're in the locker room getting ready, as you're walking the field. Those are all times that you can build on this mental preparation. Having a routine. So before the game, what's your routine? This is part of the focus and concentration. Everybody's got a routine, and usually everybody's different. When do you walk the field? How do you walk the field? When do you say hello to the coaches? Do you have music that plays in your locker room? A lot of people love to bring the the wireless Bluetooth speakers and play music in the locker room as they're getting ready. That's a way to be focused and concentration. When do you give your pregame conference to your referee crew or to the players, to the captains? Those are all things that you have to have that routine. And once you build that habit, this routine becomes just repetitious and it becomes, automatic. And then you can start to focus on different aspects of the game. I truly feel that's important too, is getting in your routine and not feeling rushed. Because once you start to feel rushed, your focus and concentration now start to diminish. And now you're basically you're living on a prayer when you're in your match, because you're worried about other aspects of things that are out of your control and not focusing on the match itself.
If you don't mind interrupting you a little bit there, to us, mental preparation and readiness is so important that we actually are dedicating an entire webinar just on mental preparation and readiness. And that will be on May 22nd, where we have our famous Donald Wilbur doing a presentation on mind traps. And then we're going to have the crew of the 2018 UEFA Champions League final between Real Madrid and Liverpool, giving us a beautiful hour presentation on how they prepare for that game and everything else. So I don't want to interrupt you, but we know mental preparation is a key component of good officiating out there.
Absolutely, and I highly recommend everybody tune into that, especially Dr. Don Wilbur, who's been a mentor of mine throughout the years, and he is an incredible individual. He provides such great information regarding mental preparation that there's a lot of value there from Dr. Don. So now we talk about during the game. We all make mistakes. It's inevitable. We make mistakes in every game we do. There's no such thing as a perfect game unless it's a cancellation due to weather. But everybody makes a mistake. Some are much greater than others. But nevertheless, what do you do when a mistake occurs to get your focus and concentration back? So, Richard, do we have anybody in the audience that would like to chime in here? Like, what do they do? There's a perceived mistake on their end where they feel it in their gut that
I'm just going to throw.
Made. What do they do? What does everybody do here?
I'm going to throw somebody under the bus. Greg Salomon, how are you? Are you with us? Greg, are you there? It's okay. We'll throw somebody else under the bus. Don't worry about it. We'll get someone else. Someone that can talk.
How about Assad? Get Assad. Assad, because I used to work with Assad out in Iowa.
I'm looking for him, as a matter of fact. You just read my mind. I'm looking for him.
Focused and concentrated.
Where are you? There he is. He's self-muted. Can you unmute so you can talk, Sam? Nobody wants to talk. It's all right. We'll grab somebody else. Don't worry about it. We'll get one here. We'll get one here.
How about Harris?
Oh.
Harris, because I want to know Harris's cheat code for getting all the 4 stimulus quizzes correct.
You know what? We can get.
If he's got my computer, if he's got my computer hacked or something.
I know. Nobody wants to talk. Ziggy, do you want to talk?
Yeah, get Mike on.
Mikey. Don't be shy, Mikey. We'll grab somebody. Don't worry about it. We'll throw somebody under the bus. Oh, I know who likes to talk. Hi, Kyle. How are you?
What's going on, Richard? Lance, how are you?
I know you
Hey,
like to
Kyle,
talk,
what's
so
up,
go right
man?
ahead. You with Lance?
All right. What's up, Lance? How are you?
Good, Kyle. How are you? So, Kyle, when you make a mistake in a game, what do you do to put it behind you in order to remain focused and concentrate on your next decision?
Yeah, I think it's important. Like, if you make a mistake, you can't let it affect you mentally, because that's going to have an effect on the next big play you have to make. So you kind of have to, just let it go. You got to move on to that next play. And maybe, when you get a chance at a later time, say something to that player that, you might have missed a foul for. That was fouled, let them know that, I might have missed that. Sorry about that when you get your chance, or maybe even a coach, when you have that opportunity, if you really feel you missed something. But I think it's important not to, overthink things.
No, absolutely. And that was some of the best piece of advice that was given to me by a former MLS official, Robert Mann, that, you're allowed to make a mistake once for each team and apologize for it. But once you start to make more than one mistake for each team, then you start to lose that credibility. And there's something to be said about having humility there. When you make a mistake, like you mentioned, where you go back, you circle around that player and you tell them, hey, I think I missed that one. I don't think I was in the best position, but let me work harder next time. I'm going to work harder for you, so next time I don't miss it. And players really do appreciate that. They really appreciate that, because now they know that you're human, and now you're going to work harder to not let that happen. And I really think that's important. And it's easier said than done, right? It's easier said than done when you make a mistake to be able to put it past you. Like I can give you a prime example of a NCAA tournament game I was doing, and we're at the end of the second half, maybe 10 minutes left. The ball gets played in the midfield. It hits me. Next, it switches teams. Next time it goes down the field. 2 touches later, it's in the back of the net. So now I'm feeling awful. And there's not a whole lot of I'm sorry's I can say to alleviate that problem. But you have to regain your focus and your concentration in order to, like Kyle said, in order to be ready for the next play. Because a lot of times coaches can forgive it once, but if it happens a second time, they cannot forgive it. Then it becomes, now it's a problem. So I'm a big believer on having a reset button. It says rest, but it's actually reset. So I'm a big believer of having a reset button. And what is that reset button? For me, I wear a wristband. So anytime I make a perceived mistake, I say to myself, I wipe my forehead, and I say to myself, reset. And for me, that resets the entire situation for me. It wipes the slate clean, and now I'm focused back on track. And I actually, those of you that have a subscription to Referee Magazine, I actually read that in Referee Magazine probably like 3 or 4 years ago. And it was actually in the basketball section. They were talking about basketball official Steve Javie was talking about what does he do, because in basketball, things happen so quickly that if you get hung up on a mistake, you are definitely going to miss the next mistake. And I feel it's very important. Everybody's reset button is different, right? Like Carol Ann mentioned, one of the officials had a gummy bear and would eat a gummy bear at a certain time in the match, and that helped her reset and maintain focus. Others dig their fingernails in their hand. Other ones wear maybe a little a rubber band and they snap it. Those are the type of things. Now, even though you have this reset button, what can you do if you're still having problems? And that's using your teammates. Many times when we're out there on the field, we make a mistake, we feel we're out there by ourselves. And we just want to crawl underneath a rock and hope this game gets over quickly so we can get out of there. And you forget about your teammates and the encouragement that they can have on you and help you be focused and concentration. The visual eye contact, making sure you're using eye contact to check back in with your assistant referees and your fourth official during stoppages of play. Could be on a goal kick, could be on a substitution, it could be on a delayed throw-in. Those are times to look over at your assistant referees and your fourth official and give them a thumbs up, you know. And then and on the reverse side of that, if you're an assistant referee and you know your referee is struggling because of a mistake he or she made, you have to be able to recognize that, and you have to be able to reach your hand out and pick them up off the ground. And you do that by your nonverbal communication, your visual eye contact, your thumbs up, letting them know, hey, dude, don't worry about it. Wipe the slate clean. Let's go. We've got 80 minutes left. You can do this. Don't worry about it. And it works the same way with referees, with assistant referees that make perceived, maybe they miss an offside decision. And you can see them that they're very upset or disappointed at themselves. You as a referee have to go pick them up. You have to be inspiring. You have to be uplifting to your crew, because there's only 3, maybe 4 of you out there, and both compared to about 40 players, 10 coaches. So you're really, you don't want to be left on an island. You have these resources that you can use in order to help people and help your crews. And then at halftime, what are you doing at halftime to get focused and concentrated on the second half? You know, a lot of the times, assistant referees are talking about, what their defensive line did in the first half. Are they playing a high? Do they drop back? Is there an attacker that's usually hanging offside? These are the things that need to be discussed amongst assistant referees. And then also adjustments as a referee, things you're making, game control, game control, atmosphere of the match, safety of the student athletes. We got to make sure these are all maintained. Many of us, when we make a perceived bad decision in the first half, the first thing we like to do in the locker room is go grab our phone. And if the game's on ESPN, watch ESPN or ESPN app, we want to pull up that clip. There's no need for that. And the reason I say there's no need for that, because all it's going to do is, if a perceived decision that goes wrong, and now you see the video of it and it's wrong, now it no longer becomes a perceived a poor decision. Now it's factual. So now that really starts to mess with your mindset, your focus and concentration. So, there's a reason why for the MLS and the professional referees and at the FIFA level, you don't check your phone at halftime, because nothing good comes out of checking your phone at halftime. And a lot of the times that doesn't get you back on track. That usually gets you further off track and focused and concentrated. So halftime is extremely important, and it can really help or hurt you when it comes to it. And we all do it. We all check our phones at halftime, especially when it's Sundays, when we're looking at the score for football games, our fantasy football teams. But we have to remember, and we have to make it a habit and a best practice that, checking our phones at halftime can wait, because it's more about being focused and concentrated on the match itself.
Yeah, like you're saying, halftime should be used for positive things, not negative things. So instead of discussing something that you believe you made a mistake, or you made a mistake, you should focus on what you did right and what your teammates did right, and feed yourself on positive thoughts. So once you hit back to the field, you're just empowering yourself.
Absolutely. And what's the plan going forward for the second half? What's the plan? Because we're going to have a plan when we go out there, just like the coaches are doing. They're trying to put together a plan for their teams for success. And that's the time. That's the only time we get 15 minutes to be able to make a plan and make adjustments at halftime. So it's extremely important that we focus on the plan. And when you get in the locker room immediately at halftime, it shouldn't be, okay, what do we need to do? Take some time to decompress. Take some time to catch your breath, rehydrate, and think about and reflect, and then be able to have that discussion. And the discussion needs to be honest and open. It needs to be honest and open with your crew, but at the same time, it needs to be done, as Richard said, in a positive manner. Because, like I said, there's only 3, maybe 4 officials out there compared to 40 plus players, 10 plus coaches. So we really need to be on the same page, because the players and the coaches can really sniff that out immediately. They can sniff it out when we feel like we've done when we're not focused and concentrated, and they will really act on that. So now we get to after the game. So after the game, many of us do a self-analysis. And self-analysis is very important for your growth as an official. Now, the more games we referee, the higher, the more likely that we are going to become better every time. But if you're able to do an honest self-analysis post-game of yourself, or ask your crew, hey, is there anything in that second half that, maybe, I could have done differently? Or what do you recommend? And having that honest discussion, it's really going to go a long way with your growth. And it's going to really accelerate your growth as an official. Being humble. Like CONCACAF, we talk about being humble and being studious, and also being honest with one another. And that really helps your development. Now, when I was an active official, I say this like I'm old, but I'm only 37. I kept a journal. And after every game I did, I would have my little referee journal, and I wouldn't do it immediately after the game, because you need some time to decompress and really digest what just happened in the match. But I always did it before I went to bed that night. And when I was fresh in my head and I had time to reflect, and I would write down what are 3 things that I felt I did well in the match, and 3 things that I still need improvement on. And that what I would do as part of that self-analysis is I would look to see if there were common trends that were issues in my matches for the week to 2 weeks period. And by having this self-analysis and being able to connect the dots, it really helped me focus and concentrate when I went back out on the field. No matter what age, no matter what level I was officiating, it helped provide me some focus and concentration going forward. And at the same time, is you can't lose focus on what you do well, because what you do well out there and your strengths, you want to keep getting those stronger. But at the same time as your weaknesses, you want to eventually turn those into your strengths, because you're only as strong as your weakest weakness. When we talk about mentorship, so who do you talk to after matches? A lot of the times we have mentors, we have peers that we confide in where we can talk to. We have spouses that we can talk to about our matches, even though, I talk to my wife enough about soccer that I usually end up talking to my brother. I'll talk to my brother about matches, what happened in our matches, what happened in his matches. I'll talk to my friends. I'll watch a lot of soccer games. We're able to discuss, like what are some things that I can do to get better. Everybody that's aspiring to be a top level official, whether it be Division I level, College Cup, professional, FIFA, they all have had mentors. It's very important that you have a mentor that you can talk situations through, that you can do some self-reflection on, and they can help you come up with solutions. And your mentors don't have to be somebody that has been a FIFA referee. A lot of the times your mentor is, you don't really pick your mentor. It just happens organically, where you either have the same common interests, maybe you have the same profession, maybe you have a lot of the same social skills. So that's an opportunity where you're able to really bounce some ideas off that person and be able to help you grow as an official. And at the same time, if you're at the you're at a position in your referee career where you can give back. You know, we talk about this at the CONCACAF level all the time. It's always about paying it forward. What are you doing to help the next generation of referees be better than you were? You know, Carol Ann Chenard, I talked about that earlier with her, and you know, it was the honest truth is, you know, she has helped a tremendous amount of our newer FIFA referees based on her experiences. And a lot of that has come from people before her. Carrie Seitz has mentored the officials that are now towards the, that are more of our seasoned officials right now in CONCACAF. So you always have to have a strong mentor. And I know, Richard, you guys have a very strong mentor program in RWISOA.
Yes, we do. We believe, like you're saying, instruction is number one, and pass it on. You have to pass it on, and you need to be ready as a referee for the first game, and you need to be ready for the last game. So what we do is we create a path for the senior referees to keep giving back to the game by becoming assessors, and we have a very strong assessment program. Yes. Thank you for bringing it up.
And I know a lot of chapters out there that are listening also have strong mentor programs where they use their more experienced officials within their chapters to help mentor the newer college officials out there in their chapter. So that is a strong learning tool that I hope if chapters are not using that they're able to implement it, and specifically on spring games, because, you know, let's be honest, spring games don't count for records. Most of the time, the players aren't in game condition. The coaches aren't nearly as passionate, but, you know, they play to win. So those are the times where we could really use to mentor newer officials.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Those are the type of games, and even club college. Club college is another great platform to train referees.
Absolutely, and you know, when you get those assignments, you know, when I get those assignments now as you know, a senior official, and I get assigned AR1, which those of you on the call that know me, rarely do I run a line, but when I do run a line, I do a heck of a job, I like to say. And you know, when you're a seasoned official, that's part of giving back. Is when I see my assignment and I see that, oh, I'm AR1, and the referee is a 2-year NYSOA official, and I'm there to help them. And you have to recognize that, and you have to be willing to do that, because that's what's going to make everybody better. That's going to make the game better. That's going to make the players better. That's going to make your assigner doing a better job, and as well as NYSOA better, because of the reputation that you're going out there and you're exhibiting. And then after the game, you got to start thinking about the next game. You really have to start thinking about the next game. Now, we've all had it where we've gone and we've completed our match, and we're feeling good, where the adrenaline is still flowing, it's still running, and maybe it's hard to sleep at night because you did such a great job. You did a perceived great job. And then there's the other side, that you dwell on your decisions, that maybe that wasn't a red card, or maybe I missed dog-so, or, you know, coach was really unhappy with me after the game because he said that I wasn't protecting, you know, his players, you know, and that really gets to me and starts to eat at me. You know, you have that 24-hour period where you can do the reflection on it. But because the college season is so short, you have to wipe the slate clean and move on to the next game. When you go to bed and you wake up, you got to be thinking about your next match. You can't be still dwelling on the other match. Now, you can seek out information on maybe how to handle situations, or, you know, sharing your clips with your mentor, or individuals that you that can get you the correct answer. or maybe provide you alternative options, that's always good to do. But you have to remember that once you've gone to the next day, you need to get ready for the next match. And a lot of that is rest. You have to have rest. And that's not the rest button that we saw on a couple slides ago. That you have to have rest. And you have to allow the mind to recover and be able to focus on the next match. And that's getting quality rest. A lot of the times for the college season, it's that 7 o'clock start on Friday, and then you got a weather delay, and then all of a sudden you don't kick off till 9. Game gets over at 11. I got an hour and a half drive home. Oh, and then I got that NAIA doubleheader that starts at noon the next day. Oh, and by the way, I got to write my red card report from the night before. So you have to be able to manage that in order to get the proper rest, because you have to be ready for the next match. And just to kind of close it before we start to open up for discussion, I'm going to leave everybody with a quote here. And it's by Tony Robbins. And those of you that know Tony Robbins, he's master motivator. And this is a quote that I really felt really was, particular to this presentation that Richard asked me to do. And it's one reason so few of us achieve what we truly want is that we never direct our focus. We never concentrate our power. Most people dabble their way through life, never deciding to master anything in particular. And to me, that really attributes to refereeing. A lot of us are happy being at the status quo, or hey, I'm going to get my opportunity because somebody likes me at some point. But that's not the case. You have to really make a conscious effort and focus and concentrate and figure out how you're going to be better. So that way you're going to put yourself in the best position to get that next opportunity. And I truly feel that setting goals is a great way to put you on track.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's one of the ways, if not the only way. Why don't we open up to some questions? We have so many questions, and we're so late. We already passed everything by like 20 minutes. So for those of you that have to go to sleep, we understand. We're gonna be replaying this tomorrow, like we always do on Facebook and then YouTube. But for those of you that would like to stay for a little while longer, we're going to spend a few more minutes going through some questions. So if it's okay with you, Lance, I'm going to open up the microphones here for some of the attendees. They have some great questions for you.
Fire away.
So let's start with Isad. Isad, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
First name, last name, and where you calling from, and your question for Lance.
Assad Amanovich from Iowa.
What's up, Assad?
How's it going?
Good, man. How are you? How's Iowa?
It's not bad today, actually. It's been pretty nice these last couple of weeks. So, how are things down in Florida?
I can't complain, man. I can't complain. You walk outside and it feels like a beautiful day, but you know that the world around you is in a different situation, so you have to keep that in perspective.
Yep, absolutely. I'll try to take up as less time as possible. So my question, you kind of touched on it a little bit. Is there a game in your mind that didn't go the best, and then after the game it might have messed with your focus and concentration? And what did you do to get refocused for the following match?
So there's one game in particular. It was a couple of years ago at Baylor, where I had a real nasty injury towards the last maybe like 8 minutes of a match, where it was a 50-50 challenge, and it was just one of those where you could feel that it was going to be a train wreck with two players coming together with no breaks.
Mm-hmm.
and one player got it worse than the other player, and she had to be carted off. And, you know, those are the things for me that, you know, me as a referee, I never want to see players, and I know, Assad, you're a former player, that you never want to see players leave your field injured and not return. I mean, regardless if you have any control over the situation or not, because we're there for the student athletes. And that was always something for me, to see a player be carted off and not return, especially towards the end of the match, that I always felt that it always kind of stuck with me. And, you know, then you got to figure out how do you wipe the slate clean after the game. You know, for me, it was talking to my assigner, who happened to be Manny Ortiz, talking to my assigner about it, talking to my crew about it, you know, talking to the people that I feel are mentors to me, and be able to refocus, because I had another game the next day. And that's just the true reality of college soccer, where you're doing games on back-to-back days. So, you know, it's a little different for everybody, but it's about being able to have a network of people that you really trust. And a lot of it comes with your friendships, that you're able to talk to people about your matches and be able to figure out what you could have done differently. And then also mentally visualize for the next match. If that happens, now I know what to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Great points. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Assad. Have a good one.
You as well. See you soon.
Richard, can you hear me?
Yes, I got you. Thank you, Assad. Thank you for staying so late. We have Andrew Kennedy coming up. Andrew, you still with us?
Hi, Lance. How's it going?
Hey, Andrew, how you doing? Good to
Good.
finally talk to you after our email back and forth.
Yeah, thanks for doing that.
Where you calling from, Andrew? Let everybody know where you're calling from.
I'm calling from Western New York, up in Rochester.
So you from the other New York, Canada. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So, Lance, obviously, we're in a bit of a soccer drought right now, and my biggest thing was, you know, you've said that you've overcome obstacles in games, but when was a time, like, I mean, we've all had goals. One of my goals was doing Eastern Regional Championships for youth soccer this year, and possibly going to nationals. Obviously, that's not going to happen. Where was one of the places where you really ran into an obstacle, maybe not quite of this, you know, global pandemic size, but how did you overcome it?
Oh, it's a great question. And one thing that sticks out in my head is that when it was 2010 youth championships, national championships, where, you know, it was my first year going to youth nationals. I had gone to youth regionals 3 years before. And, you know, just to get to youth nationals, I made it a point to do everything in my power to be prepared at youth regionals in the South to put me in the best position to get an opportunity to be selected to go to youth nationals. Now, we know, Andrew, when you go to those youth championships, there's a lot of referees, there's a lot of games, and a lot of the time it's you never know who's going to be watching you at what moment in your match. So you have to be sharp from minute 1 to minute 90 plus.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be ready to train. You know, we tell referees in CONCACAF, you have to train for 100, you have to train for 120 minutes, 130 minutes, because you got to be ready to go for the entire 90 minutes, the 30 minutes of, additional time, extra time, 15 and 15, and still have enough in the tank for kicks from the mark. So that's always been something that I've always kind of taken with me, even at an earlier stage of my officiating career. And then when I went to youth nationals of my first year, I felt, you know, some good performances, good feedback. but I was disappointed because, you know, everybody wants to do a final. Everybody wants to do a final, but there's not enough finals to go around. And in that year, you know, some of my classmates were Robert Sabiga, Alex Chilowitz, you know, great officials, you know, officials that are working, Christina Uncle, you know, great officials, you know. So, you know, Tori Penso was there. So, you know, officials where, you know, it's very difficult and you have to perform at the highest level all the time. So I was disappointed. So the first thing I did when I got on I still remember this to the day, when I was on my flight home, I broke out a piece of paper and I said to myself, this can't happen again. I want to go back to youth nationals next year. And when I go back, I want to work a final. So you write down your goals. How are you going to measure it? How are you going to get there? And this way you're held accountable. And then you reference that time to time to keep yourself fresh and motivated and on track. And then the following year I went back and I was the fourth official on the final. So, you know, it's a little catch-22 there, but the fact of the matter is that mindset, it's not about doing the final, but it's that mindset of having goals in mind and working towards them, because that sets you up for other achievements in life. And that's just outside of soccer. It's just having that mindset of being focused, you know, having little, you know, taste of adversity, how to overcome adversity. You know, we call that the bounce back effect, elasticity, where, you know, it really, you know, everybody faces adversity at some point in their careers, but it's how you bounce back from that adversity and how quickly you can bounce back from that adversity is what really shows, you know, it really tells a lot about who you are as a person.
That was great. Great. Thank you, Andrew, for the question.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew.
We have another one. Let's see if we can get David Nunes from San Diego. David, you still with us?
Yes, can you hear me?
We hear you well, loud and clear, and you're from San Diego, correct? RWISOA, San Diego?
Yes.
San Diego through Oklahoma, right?
Yes, yes. Yes, yes.
How you doing, David? Good to hear from you,
great.
man.
Hi, glad to be here participating in this webinar and hear from you as well.
Your question, David.
Well, I sent several questions, but I think you hit
You got
pretty
time
much
for one.
most of them. Well, can you help me which one? I'm just kind of reading right now.
So you want me to ask you the question?
Well, the question that I think you didn't answer, but I think the one that I have is, you know, people have different kind of levels of preparations and focus before, and you kind of mentioned this early in your presentation. You know, listen to music, this and that, but people have a different kind of way. How do you kind of really manage that? I mean, just, you know, some people like to be quiet, some people like to listen to music, some people like to talk about other things to relax. How do you kind of put everybody kind of together in the same level of focus and prep before the game?
So that's a great question, David. It really is, and that really deals with managing people.
Right.
You know, and that's what we are as referees out there. You know, we're managing players, we're managing coaches, we manage people. And we also manage our crews, because everybody comes from different backgrounds. Everybody has different experiences. Everybody's at different experiences in their referee careers. And like you said, you know, how do you manage that? You know, everybody's preparation. And a lot of the times for me is, you know, I try to get to my games an hour and a half before the collegiate games. And I know that's tough in certain areas, but you try to make it a habit, because then you build in some time in case you're delayed. But when we get to that hour before kickoff and we're in the locker room after we've walked the field and whatnot, I like to use that 15 minutes of that's your time. So like as an assistant referee, this is your time to do what you need to do to get focused. My fourth official, this is your time. My other assistant referee, for me. Now, if somebody likes to play music, for me, I'm not a music person, but I'm more of a conversation person. But usually what will happen is you just ask, hey, do you mind if we play some music? And more times than not, they'll say, oh, no problem. And then you'll play some music. Or if you ask, what kind of music do you like? And things like that, help break down those barriers. And I think that's very powerful to be able to manage your crew and understand everybody's needs. A lot of the times too, during warm-ups, assistant referees will ask, hey, can I go check my line? Just to make sure that I can find my focus points, my marks on the field, making sure there's no divots on my line, so that way I don't trip or twist my ankle, things like that. That during the warm-ups, absolutely, go check, go do what you need to do to get ready. And that's a great question you asked, because it's extremely important that you not only are you getting ready as a referee, but you're also in charge of your crew, so you need to help get them ready. And I hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thanks, David.
Great. Thank you, David. Thank you. We way past overtime and extra time and everything else. We almost done. We almost done with the kicks from the penalty mark. So let's see if we can bring. I still have like 20 other questions, but I'm just gonna round it up with 2. So I'm just gonna pick 2 names, and that will be the final 2 questions. So otherwise, we'll stay here until mañana. It's almost mañana for the matter.
I see 79 people still on the call, so as long as they want to keep asking questions, feel free. But please go ahead.
All right, let's bring Bill. Bill Kinney. Bill, how are you? Again, where are you calling from, and what is your question for Lance?
Yeah, I'm calling from Wichita, Kansas. Hey, Lance, I met you last year at the Greensboro combo with elite soccer referees, where we had 300 referees there. That was quite an impressive clinic, having 300 officials in one clinic. That was quite an impressive
Bill,
deal that you guys put on.
Bill, that was incredible. I mean, that was the largest that NYSO has ever had at one clinic, one educational clinic. We had 300, for those of you that are listening, we had 300 referees, and we took a giant ballroom in a hotel, and it was incredible. It was very impressive, and that had to do with TYSOA and the president, Roger Morton, down there in North Carolina, and they always put referees first, and it was a first-class treatment. And I strongly recommend anybody on the call that when there are clinics down the road in the Greensboro area sponsored by TYSOA, that I highly encourage everybody to partake in those, like we did, Bill.
Yeah. So my question is the coaches and dealing with the bench area. So, I mean, as you go up, and we discussed this a little bit at that, the upper levels, the coaches and the benches, you have that 4th official there, but there, like you discussed earlier, there's a lot of times there's only 3, maybe 4 of us that are controlling the game. So, I mean, at the JUCO level, the D3, the D2 level, the coaches, I'm sure you've experienced coming up through the ranks, the coaches can be quite challenging. Have you ever had that coach or that facility that everybody knew that when that assignment came out, that there was a potential that game could go sideways? And what level do you allow, or should we allow as a team on the sideline before the coach? Or what we see a lot is the assistant coaches getting up and barking and taking those cards so the head coach doesn't get that accumulation. So I'm real curious about your bench control and where NYSOA is with the strictness of controlling the bench areas.
Great question. And that was a topic that was touched on for the coaches roundtable yesterday that RWISOA sponsored, where we talked about bench decorum and things like that. And, you know, it's, as you mentioned too, it's the, you know, you see those rivalry games. And sometimes the rivalry games aren't necessarily cross-town rivalries, but maybe it's coaching rivalries. I always remember when I saw the assignment, University of South Florida versus UConn men. You know, those coaches had a rivalry, even though they were so far apart geographically. And you always knew that you had to be ready for everything. And that starts with the preparation. Now, and you were alluding to that. How do you prepare for that? You know, you really have to, you know, most of us, you know, we give a good detailed pregame prior to the start, so we're all on the same page. But when you have these rivalry matches, you know, it starts in your communication with your crews when you send out the emails. Now, you put a lot of your information in terms of rivalries, where teams are, the standings, you know, when they last played, you know, how many fouls and how many cards did they have, what was the score, things like that. And that takes care of a lot of your housekeeping items before you even get to the stadium. And then when you're there, now you can focus on the specifics. Hey, if a coach does this is, you know, especially when you don't have a fourth official, you really got to have a game plan with your assistant referee over there. Now, assistant referee one can handle the bench that they're in front of, but it can't be to the point where it impacts their ability to do their job in the match. Whereas the other bench is where the referee really needs to have control over and really pay close attention. Now, there's a fine line there, right? So you don't want to have rabbit ears, but at the same time is you need to be prepared for inappropriate behavior. And how you deal with that is going to be different for every coach. We don't go into matches with preconceived notions of, well, this coach is a handful, so the first time he says something, I'm going to card him. Because now we're looking for trouble, right? Coaches will give us their opportunities to book them. We don't need to go looking for them. But chances are is we can prevent that stuff from occurring. And a lot of that is how you approach the match when you introduce yourself to the coach. When you shake their hand, you look them in the eye. Hey, coach, how you doing? How's everything? Is there anything special today? Do we have anything, pregame ceremonies or anything? Everything okay? Okay, great. Thank you, coach. You know, not too prolonged, but at the same time as you're showing that you care and you're giving a professional approach to the match. And that's another reason why we warm up, because we warm up not only for injury prevention purposes, but it's the professional approach we have to the matches that lets the coaches know that, hey, I got a referee here today. He or she's going to do a great job for me. I can just tell because they're taking this serious. So they might cut you a little bit more slack in the beginning. You know, the tolerance level of coaches, you know, it really comes on experience. Now, there are certain things we can't tolerate, like foul and abusive language. Those are things that are clearly stated in our NCAA rule book that are not to be tolerated. So, you know, and that's part about having the game plan and trying to be preventative with your coaching staffs prior to. And a lot of that, Bill, comes back to your reputation. You know, your reputation precedes you. And the things you do, as Carol Ann mentioned, the things you do when people aren't looking is what the habits you're building and become second nature when people are looking. So building that reputation, because a lot of these coaches do watch games outside of their own. And all it takes is them to be watching them and they say, oh, who's that referee? I thought they did a really nice job. And then now when you go to referee them, they can put a name with a face. So a lot of it starts in the pregame with your crew, how you want to handle specific situations. And especially when you have a 3-person crew versus a 4-person crew, you have to focus even more on the bench. And I put an emphasis on always covering technical area behavior, because you need everybody on the crew needs to be on the same page of what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And I truly feel by preparing for that and trying to be preventative is really going to set you apart. And it's going to be different from game to game. So you can't go in with the same game plan. And you really start to develop and start to reevaluate and adjust your game plans based on your level of experience. And this is where you start to lean on your assessors, because I know you said you're an assessor. You start to lean on these people to give you this advice. So I hope, even though I didn't really get into too many specifics, but it really comes down to preparation, professional approach, being preventative and respectful to the coaches, but at the same time is drawing the line in the sand where they know that the line has been crossed.
Yeah, and that was just my main question is, it's just like anything, you got to have a backbone. You draw that line in the sand and they step over that, you have to take care of that, because if you don't, you lose all credibility right then and there, and the players see that, and I mean, it just goes away. So I mean, it's just we set the tone, and if you set the line, you draw the line, enforce the line.
Exactly. And one of the coaches' comments on our webinar yesterday was, every referee draws the line differently, and I need to know where my line is. So I'm going to push to see where my line is. And if the referee doesn't deal with it, then that leash gets a lot longer. Now we have to be careful, because we don't want to draw the line too early on trifling things, because there's something to be said about passion. Coaches are very passionate, and there's a fine line there between passionate and irresponsible. And that's why you really have to attend the clinics like you did. So, and I'm going to do a plug here. Subscribe to the YouTube channel for RWISOA and the educational content that's on there. Keep attending these webinars and asking questions. And also for CONCACAF, we've just created a brand new YouTube channel called the CONCACAF Center of Refereeing Excellence, where we're going to be providing educational content to referees of all levels, referees of all divisions, all over the world. Because our message is, we want to help make better referees. We want to make excellent referees. So I highly encourage, Bill, not just you, but everybody still listening, that to go on and use those resources. The NCAA also has great resources on their central hub, where dealing with technical area and behavior. So constantly seeking out this information is going to only prepare you. So, Bill, thanks for the question.
Thank you, Lance.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. Thank you. And just to sum it up, what you said, basically, it's all about preventive officiating, right? And one thing that you need to understand when you're refereeing a JUCO game or a Division III game, even some low Division II games, is the difference is not so much the skill or the level of play, but the level of acceptance. That's the main difference. So you need to prepare for that. So believe it or not, sometimes when you assign to a JUCO game, you're gonna like lay back. Oh, it's a JUCO game. I don't need to go crazy. It's not like a D1 game where I need to prepare myself. No, actually, you need to prepare more, because you need to do more. There is more personal player management that needs to be done in a JUCO game, in a D3 game, due to the fact of that level of acceptance. So if you don't train for that, if you don't practice for that game, and you don't give a pregame based on that, then you're going to have a problem. Then you're going to have to be dealing with the coaches, irresponsible behavior. But most of the time, it has to do with you. They don't understand where you're calling, so you need to work harder. It's different when you're refereeing a Maryland Indiana game. You blow the whistle, and pretty much they know 99.9% of the times they know what you call and why you call it. But in the JUCO game, that's not the case. So you need to work extra hard. So correct me if I'm wrong, Lance.
Absolutely. The D1, some of the toughest games that I still officiate are at the NAIA and Division II level. because the game is a little bit more unpredictable. Expect the unexpected in those games. And the teams play a lot. I wouldn't say they play harder, but they're, typically the fields are not in the best condition. They're not the big 120 by 80 fields. They're a lot more condensed. And when you have a smaller field, players are condensed around each other and more fouls occur. So you really have to get everybody on the same page there. And a lot of the times too with coaches is you have to listen to them. We have to listen. Coaches can give us clues of how, if there are issues going on in the field, you listen, you maybe pick up on a couple things, acknowledge them. Coach, with a thumbs up, coach, I hear you. Thank you. I heard you. Thank you, coach. I heard you. Things like that, where you're not being a jerk, you're being compassionate, but at the same time is you're letting them know that you heard them. And you know what? Sometimes they will give us great information where we can make adjustments. And then the rest is history. But if you're going to take this cavalier approach where I'm the boss out there and nobody's going to tell me what to do, that's a recipe for disaster.
That's a great point.
And that's not what assigners want. Assigners don't want that. Coaches don't want that. Fortunately or unfortunately, the collegiate game, it's more about partnerships with players and partnerships with coaches. And how can everybody work together for the greater good of the student athlete?
Yeah, like you said, many times referees are focusing on the way the coach is communicating instead of what the coach is saying. If we just pay more attention to what the message is, we can end up with a better situation instead of focusing on the way the coach is communicating. So that's a great point right there, Lynch. We have one more question.
We can't take it personal, right? The coaches are there they have a job, and we can't take it personal, right? But there's a lot of white noise as well that we have to tune out at times. But for the most part, the coaches will give us good information that we have to listen to.
No, most definitely. Let's see if we can bring Carlos Gomez. He's got a question for you. Carlos, are you with us? Carlos? We can't get Carlos, so we're going to bring in Patrick. Patrick, you have a question? Patrick, you still there?
Yes, here I am. Hey, Lance.
All right, you have a question for Lance. Go ahead.
Hey, Patrick, how you doing?
Good. So last one of the night. So I'm curious. Ralph Paulson made a really good comment yesterday in front of the coaches about trying to get some empathy from them about understanding that we're not working with the same crews every time we go to a game. We may not, especially, up here in the Northeast where we're compacted with tons of games and a lot of programs. We may see a new person almost routinely every game, or even if we see somebody, we worked with them 2 years ago. What are your tips about? I'm very interested in your thoughts on what are your game critical things, because I know you do games all over the country. When you fly in or you travel in and you've got a new crew, I mean, all the good things, right? Contacting them before and all working out all the logistics, but what game critical things do you want to make sure that you communicate to them in the pregame?
Great question. And I'll kind of just reflect back on when you and I worked together. I was at Yale, and It was the first time I've been in the Northeast. And I was coming off a game on Sunday and going Monday to Yale, and I was working with you, and it was a female referee. I think your name is Jamie Lynn.
Jamie Lynn.
So I got a great memory. So
you do.
You were two referees I've never worked with before. And, as you mentioned, I do games all around the country, so it doesn't happen very often that there's not one person that I haven't worked with before, or at least know through mentoring in Region 3. So it's about developing those relationships with your officials, because everybody comes from different walks of life and everybody gets to the game differently. But when we're at the game, we're the same. We're there for the same reason. And being able to communicate with one another, talking about different things. And, a lot of the times too, when I travel in from out of town and I'm working with ARs, typically they have worked together with themselves. So they're usually talking about something, and I try to make it a point to ask questions about it. Or if I'm working with somebody that I know, but yet the third person in my crew is maybe somebody that's new to both of us, I always make sure to include that person in the conversation. Because the more that we can get on the same level cerebrally, as well as being able to communicate with one another, then the coaches are going to know, the coaches will have no idea that we've never worked together before. And a lot of the times I'm asking questions, right? Like when we did the game, you and Jamie Lynn knew both coaches.
Right.
And that was a great way for me to say, hey, how are the coaches? How do they typically behave? How are these teams? And to me, because you both of you have that great information that I can really rely on. And
I thought it was
as an out-of-towner, go ahead.
Sorry, I thought it was also interesting yesterday that one of the coaches said this, and I thought about this afterwards. They said that they're very keen on looking how the crew's interacting with each other before the game. So the referee that walks out to the coaches by themselves without the AR, that's a big no-no.
That's right. You bring your crew with you. Introduce your crew.
Right.
Absolutely.
It's interesting that they flagged that.
And one thing we do in South Florida that has really paid dividends is when we do because a lot of the times the coaches don't know the commitment level that we put in. And that's just not their fault. They just don't know. They don't know what they don't know. So, the webinars till 10 o'clock at night on Fridays, the fitness training, the meetings that we have, the rule clinics, they don't understand that necessarily. Whereas Ralph Paulson understands that because he's a current NYSOA member. So one of the things we do in South Florida is in our preseason training, especially when there's a rule change year, we will invite our local college coaches to our rules training clinic. So that way it helps them understand the rules a little better and the changes and what referees are looking for. And we invite them to have this roundtable discussion. And they are blown away that the amount of time and effort that referees put into their craft after that. And we tend to find that the relationships we have with our coaches in our local area are tenfold more positive after that, because they really get a appreciation for us. And I really think that's it's a good tool for the people that are still listening in the chapters to be able to use that.
Yeah, I thought that clinic yesterday was outstanding. The feedback that we got from coaches in that session was invaluable. And I think we need to have more of those, not just one coach, but a panel like that.
I'm glad you said that, because kind of the plan going forward is we're trying to work on and making it regionalized. So that way we can get different perspectives from different groups of coaches. This was a panel from the South. Maybe that's a different perspective than the coaches from the Northeast, from the Midwest, out West, things like that. So, be on the lookout for some information possibly coming out and where we're going to have more of those. So I really do appreciate it, Patrick. And I hope all is well, and I hope to see you down the road.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. Thank you. And you know what? It's going to be almost 4 hours, and we still have over 70 referees. And
let's take one more question.
Let's take one more question. Let's try David again. David, are you there now?
Yeah.
You're in. There you go. Where are you calling from, and what is your question?
San Diego. Recently just moved here. Okay. I know that you like we previously talked about different ways to kind of interact with your crew. And another top on kind of the same kind of level that I asked before, and you kind of mentioned that, but we're more specific. How do you handle difference of experience in the crew? I know that you said that as an AR, when you see somebody that's an experienced center, you kind of have that help, that kind of tendency to help them. But how do you kind of really handle, especially, of course, if somebody's inexperienced and you say, okay, it's going to be a tough game for this guy, how do you kind of help them to kind of get to a level of comfort and confidence, try to kind of get them to a level of preparedness for that game? Because sometimes you kind of see that somebody's like not really confident, especially if they make a mistake early in the game or the coach already yelling at them and you're like, oh boy, that's going to be a long game. So how do you kind of do this as a preparation in the game, knowing that it's going to be a hard game for the person without telling them, hey, you're going to have a hard time at the same time during the game, especially towards the end when things kind of may go crazy and you need to have time to kind of really kind of calm down and reassess things?
That's a great question. It's another great question, David. And you have to understand that the referee is in charge. So, like, even if you're a senior official and you're on the line, it starts in the pregame, you got to remember this is their game. So they need to take ownership of being the leader of the crew. Now, there are things that you can do as a senior official to help with the leadership skills of a lesser experienced official. And it starts in the pregame too, asking questions. Don't just make assumptions and don't tell the referee what to do, but ask questions. How would you like me to handle this? I have a suggestion. What do you think about this? Things like that really can pay dividends down the road. And at the same time too, as a senior referee, is you got to remember too, is you're only as good as your weakest link. You're only as good as your weakest link. So, chances are, if there's a referee mistake out there or a referee crew mistake, everybody gets, the coaches take it out on everybody. So you really have to focus on how can we maximize our, not only our leadership skills, but also maximize all of our skill sets in one. And it's difficult especially when you don't work together on a frequent basis, like other sports do, where they have crews where they work all the time together. But it starts in the pregame. It starts in when you contact your crew. How do you contact them? Are you overwhelming with too much information? Do you not contact them until a day before? It's things like that you have to really take in consideration. And then during the pregame too, and the pregame walk, like coaches were talking about how they can tell if referees have never worked together before. How do they check the field? Do they do it together? Is there one person, lagging behind the other, or one person way out in front of the other? You really have to, stress teamwork and leadership. So I hope that answers your question. And I know it's only 7 o'clock your time, so you probably want to stay on this for another couple hours, right?
Most likely. But along that line, I have to bring in Carlos Gomez because he has a question about how do you handle crew members when they're not focused during the game. So Carlos, you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Where are you calling from?
Yes, Carlos, go ahead.
Hey, Lance, I'm calling from Maryland, and I'm excited about this. I'm really a new NISOA member, and have a question for you is how to handle your crew members when they are not focused on the game. You mentioned something about um, like important halftime and not to check their phones. And believe me, sometimes I even have ARs that have the phones in the pocket in the middle of the game. They're checking the phone or they're not paying attention to the game. And some people they get offended or they get mad when you mention something like this. So how you handle that? Because I had an issue and a referee got mad at me because
Mm-hmm.
I was, just telling, look, for me, soccer is serious, and I'm there because for so many reasons. But more of is respect for the spectators, players, coaches, and all that. That's very important for me.
No,
So
absolutely. First off, welcome to the NYSOA family.
thank you,
And
sir.
I hope you're taking advantage. I mean, I remember my first year being an NYSOA member. It was 2008, and it really opened up a world of soccer that I really didn't know was even there. The college game is a very challenging game at all levels, but at the same time, it's very safe. Nothing crazy is going to happen like what could happen on like your Sunday amateur level games. So it's a safe environment. So welcome to the family, and I hope you take advantage of all of our educational opportunities that NYSOA and RWISOA are providing. And to answer your question, it's very difficult. It's very difficult, and it really takes a special type of skill set to be able to be able to manage your crew when maybe things aren't going the way you think they should be, or people aren't acting the way they should be. I recommend a book called Verbal Judo.
Okay.
And it's a book that's been recommended to me, and that when I first started officiating, and basically it's the art of persuasion. It's written by a former police officer, and it talks about like how do you get people to do what you want them to do without telling them you need to do this. And it really works hand in hand with the police officers. It works hand in hand with our players, and it works hand in hand with our officiating crew. Because you don't want to be the dad when you're out there telling your crew, "Hey, put your phone away. Hey, do this.
Right.
Hey, do that." But you gotta. It's almost like you gotta plant the seed with them to say, "Hey, is everything okay? Is there anything? Anything? Hey, let's talk about this, or something's bothering you. You want to talk about it right now? Like, is there something I can help you with? Showing some compassion to your crew can really go a long way too. So the book, Verbal Judo, Art of Persuasion. I don't even know if they make books anymore. You can probably get it online, but
Well, I think
definitely one to check out.
yeah, I think I saw the book somewhere. I'm gonna get it. And also sometimes on the headsets, they talking about stuff that is not related to the game. So we're in the middle of the game, and how you just say, hey, look, just focus on the game, or what is your advice?
So that's a good one too, because it's easy to use the headsets to have commentary as opposed to being an aid for communication. So there are times where I catch myself talking maybe a little too much too, and I tell my crew ahead of time, hey, if there's too much talk on the mics, don't take it personal. If I tell you, hey, we got to cut it down because we need to focus, and if you do that ahead of time, you kind of set the table. And at the same time, I tell them too, hey, if I'm talking too much on the mics and it's interfering with your ability to focus, let me know.
Sure.
Because I'll make the adjustment. So it's kind of like a two-way street there of respect level. You know what I mean?
Yeah, got it.
Yes, that was great. Thank you, Carlos.
Thank
you
you,
again
sir.
for logging in, and thank you for your question. All right. We can stay here all night long, but you know what? I'm gonna get my rear end kicked if I don't end this soon.
Well, Richard, thank you very much. Thank you for everybody that stayed on. I see there's 65 people that stayed on. it just shows the commitment to and the dedication that everybody is making during this time to become better. NYSOA, I can speak from NYSOA from my heart because it's meant so much to me that, we really, truly are thinking about everybody that's going through this COVID-19 pandemic. And our thoughts and prayers are with everybody, especially the first responders. And, please, take advantage of our stimulus quiz, because the purpose of the stimulus quiz was not only education, but it was also to be able to provide a little bit of relief to our membership, because, Dr. Ray always said family first, and NYSOA is truly about family. And, we are one big family.
We are a big family, and I'd like to end it with a special person. I just gave him open up the mic. We have a Hall of Famer. It's almost, what time is it? Like 10 p.m. We have a Hall of Famer with us, David. David, I just gave you the mic. I don't know if you have the mic. We're gonna say a couple of words before we go to sleep. David Zimmerman with us, ladies and gentlemen. David. All right, we can get through David, but believe it or not, we have a Hall of Famer for the entire webinar. That's almost 4 hours, so that's amazing.
David's an excellent, what an incredible person. I met David at my first ever postseason assignments were the NERSA Club Championships, and he was the coordinator of officials. And I met David there, and he provided me such great feedback in my matches when he watched them. And then, we were able to reconnect years later. And I know he's really dedicated to NYSOA. He does a lot of education for NYSOA in the Northeast, and, we really appreciate his commitment.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to bring him in for final words. But next time we'll set something up for next time. So we had a great day. Jesus, what a day! So we had a lot of questions, a lot of good questions. It was a pretty good show, don't you think? What do you think, Lance?
Oh, this was great. It was awesome. I mean, the fact that you had Hassan on, right? I mean, I wasn't on when Hassan was on from Ref 6.
Yes.
So you had Hassan, who, I mean, the things they're doing at Ref 6 are incredible, and that's why NYSOA partnered with them last year. We're going to continue our partnership. It's a 3-year partnership with Ref 6. Be able to provide a select group of our officials an opportunity to partake in the pilot program that Ref 6 is implementing, as well as provide the rest of our membership with a discounted rate, NYSOA member exclusive rate for Ref 6. And then you had NYSOA Hall of Famer, former FIFA AR George Nugent on the call, who is even more, just such an amazing person, and has helped me out drastically since I've become, since I started working for NYSOA and representing them on a national level. And then who can forget Carol Ann Chenard? She's a legend. What was it, 2 World Cups? I mean, I counted 3 World Cups from the last one because, she was a month out and she was already training for it and invited and partook in all the camps. And then you had all the
honest with you, I think she was right there in line for that final too.
She is one of the best referees in the world, and that's being gender blind. She's the best. She's one of the best referees in the world, and it's a fantastic they're able to have her on, be able to share her story and be able to provide some motivation and hopefully inspire somebody that's listening on this call.
And how humble she is, unbelievable. Absolutely. And that's one thing that I really want to make sure that all the young referees understand, especially the ones that start moving up. They've been doing D1s for a couple of years, and now they think they're superstars, and sometimes they just look down at new referees. They shouldn't do that because if you think about it, last week we had 2006 FIFA World Cup final referee with us, and he was so humble. This week we have Carol Ann, and she refereeing so many great games, and she's so humble. So that tells you something. The higher you get, the more humble you should become, and that's the only way you can get to the top. Correct me if I'm wrong, Lance.
That's at CONCACAF. We're not looking for just great referees. We're also looking for great people.
And they have the right people working for them.
Have to.
You've been there yourself, and you're so humble. We can reach out, pick up the phone, and connect with you any given moment. And if you're busy, you text back, and I'll get back to you, and you do get back to us. So that's amazing. We know you're super busy. You still have time for us meeting all the chapters and all the referees. So I really appreciate everything you're doing for NYSOA. You're bringing NYSOA to the next level. That's for sure.
My pleasure. And those of you that are still listening on here, 61 people, keep working hard, keep attending these events, these webinars. I mean, next week you got Terry Vaughn. Terry's incredible. Terry's the best. I have so many great Terry stories where he was at tournaments where I was refereeing youth tournaments and he was there as an instructor, and he's just such an approachable person that you meet him and you talk to him, you would never think, whoa, this guy's done international level games. Like, he's treating me like I'm an equal.
And he's so likable.
That really personifies who he is, and that's one of the reasons why we started the 2 years ago. We did it 2018 and now 2019, where it's the Terry Vaughn referee of the week for NYSOA, because it's not only about being a good person, good referee, but it's about being a great person off the field too, and that's what Terry was. Terry still is. Then you got Ryan Sigich. You got Ryan Sigich in the NCAA. He's going to talk about the rule changes that are coming out, and a lot of specify some things. And NYSOA is working with the NCAA to create some educational content. We're going to be collaborating on some of the rule change stuff. So be on the lookout for that. What can I say about President Huber? I mean, his vision these last 2 years, the people he's bringing on board that are relevant, and he's really allowing us the freedom to run with a lot of these initiatives that we're doing. He really believes in NYSOA and believes that NYSOA has a place to develop the top level officials in this country. And then, of course, Corey Rockwell, the man, the myth, the legend himself, where the only difference with him is he holds a flag in the professional level and he holds a whistle at the college level. So he brings a great, unique perspective on the game. So fantastic. And, thank you everybody for staying on. I really do appreciate it. And if you ever have questions, like Richard said, I've already received a couple emails in my email box, lance@nysoa.com. So you're always welcome to send me an email. And if I can't get back to you right away, at least give me a couple days and I'll circle back around. So, thank you for everybody. Thank you for all you do. And Richard and Victoria, thank you for what you do, because you guys are really making a difference.
Thank you. And again, thank you everybody for logging in. And unfortunately, it's time to say goodbye. And we'll connect again in a week.
Everybody be safe.
Be safe. Have a good one.